the top of the hour when we'll be starting our workshop. We're going to go ahead and bring down the music. So we're going to bring up a signal on both YouTube Live and Facebook Live. Obviously, we don't want to mess up with any copyright infringements, so we're going to kill the music. But you are in the right place if you're here for the Get Licensed to Build workshop. Thank you for joining us. We've got about not quite 50 people online right now, so thanks for coming in a little bit early. A word, though, if you did previously download the presentation, you may want to go back at some point in the next, either during the presentation now or right afterwards while the link is still up there. We had a couple of links, bonus links that we had inside the presentation. The presentation itself hasn't changed, but there was a couple of links that we provided. They actually were not hot links, so you clicked on it and nothing happened. So anyway, we fixed those. There's a new file that has been posted. So if you get an opportunity, go ahead and hop back over to the CSLB main website, cslb.ca.gov. Just re-download that presentation. There's a green banner up at the top of the screen that says download presentation. Go ahead and get it there, save it, and you'll be set with all the correct links. So for those of you who may be joining us on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, we'll mention this at the top of the workshop as well. This is a Get Licensed to Build workshop for contractors looking to get their California contractor's license, actually for people looking to get their California contractor's license. You can either watch here on Facebook Live or YouTube Live, or if you do want to participate, potentially ask questions, you need to log into WebEx. So you'll go ahead and do that. Go to our website, cslb.ca.gov. Up at the top, you see the registration on WebEx. You can click on that and go through and register, and you can join us and submit questions. Again, we'll talk about that as we begin the workshop in just a couple of minutes. You will have an opportunity to ask questions. We will ask that if you do have questions about your work experience and how you can document your work experience, if you hold off on asking us those questions until after we complete that part of the presentation. We tend to get a lot of questions about work experience and how you document that. So we're going to cover that in some depth. We obviously can't cover everything, but give us an opportunity because we may answer your question before you ask it. If not, of course, feel free to go ahead and ask it, and we'll talk about that. If you haven't already, if you don't see the participant up on your screen, there's up at the bottom right, you see a little button you can click on. It says participants. Go ahead and click on that. It's going to open up a screen. There should be the Q&A screen there. That's what you would use if you do want to ask a question. So we'll get into that as we start at the top of the hour. Thank you again for being here. We hopefully will have a few hundred people online with us. So if you do have questions, as best as you can, try to keep them general in nature. We'll do our very best to get through them. We've allotted 2 hours for the presentation this morning. The presentation itself will probably take about 35 or 40 minutes, and the rest of the time is going to be for Q&A. So if you kind of want to plan accordingly. And also, we'll note this during the workshop as well. This is going to be recorded, so there will be a video. So if you're not able to stay with us for the entire presentation, know that it will be recorded and available on our YouTube page. If you don't know how to find that, just go to our main website, cslb.ca.gov. Up at the top of the page, you see our little social media channels. The YouTube one looks like a little right triangle, the play button, the kind of the universal play button. It's their logo. You click on that, you'll go to our website. This is the 5th time we've done this workshop, so you'll see previous workshop recordings already there. Certainly don't want to encourage you to leave us, but there are other presentations that are very, very, very similar in content to what you're going to hear today. All right, I will stop talking for now. You'll hear enough of me over the next couple of hours. So we'll go ahead and get started in about 3 minutes. Well, good morning. Welcome to the Get Licensed to Build workshop. This is a free online workshop for those of you who want to get your California contractor's license. Our goal this morning is to go through all the different parts of the license application and to give you some practical tips on how to complete the application correctly. And we want to give you every opportunity to demonstrate your experience and your qualifications to get your California contractor's license. And we also want to help you get ready for your licensing exams and to give you links to a video that we produced about what you can expect on your test day. Today's webcast is presented by the Contractor State License Board, the California government agency responsible for regulating the state's construction industry. I'm Globes. I'm joined this morning by Anna Rodriguez. Good morning, Anna.
Good morning, Rick.
Wanted to, first of all, thank those of you when you registered. You saw that we had a couple questions. One of those was if you were either somebody looking to get your contractor's license for the first time, or if you were somebody who already has a contractor's license and you were looking to add a classification. Give us an idea of who's here today. And we had probably 98% of the people are looking to get their license for the first time. So that was very helpful. As far as the classifications, I would say probably about half the people. We had over 500 people register. For half the people are looking to get their B license. Some of the more popular license classifications are the C10, which is electricians. We also had C20, which is HVAC, C27, which is landscaping, C33, which is painting, C54, which is tile, C6, which is framing. So, but we had a ton, we probably had 25 different classifications. And I'm just going to let you know as we're hearing you type right now. So that's okay. So it'll be Anna and I going through the presentation today. So thank you again for joining us. What we're going to do here, just so we don't draw attention, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera. We're still going to be here. And then when we get to questions in a little while, we'll go ahead and bring our cameras back up. So, but we are going to have presentation slides here for you. So stand by just 1 second and we'll get ourselves started. Okay, here we go. Okay, please note that after a 3-month closure due to the COVID-19 health emergency, 7 of our CSLB's 8 test centers around the state have been reopened since mid-June. And we're working as quickly as possible so we can get through the backlog of exams that have built up during the closure. Last week, we administered about 1,100 exams. One of the things that makes it tougher on any given day, between 10 and 20% of our applicants fail to show up to take their test. So as you move through the process, be sure that you're good with your test date. Write it down, put it on your calendar, don't blow it off. Not only is that going to delay you getting your license, but it's also going to delay other people who are trying to get their license. It's going to push them back as well. Also, if you're watching right now on either YouTube Live or Facebook Live and want to participate, you'll need to join us on WebEx. There's a banner with a link at the top of our homepage, cslb.ca.gov. And that's where you can also download the presentation to follow along, or you can watch now and download it later. We have clickable bonus links that appear on the slides throughout the presentation. Also, if you've downloaded it over the last couple of days, I'd encourage you to go back and download it again. We found out a couple of the links that we had were not hot links, so they didn't work when you clicked on them. So we've updated the files. So if you want those links, be sure to go back and download it again. And if you want to watch the presentation, don't have anything else to do, just stay right here on either YouTube or Facebook, or obviously here on WebEx. We're going to throw out a lot of information to you, so don't worry if you don't get it all. We're archiving this video and we'll put it on our YouTube channel so you can go back and watch again. To ask a question, use the Q&A feature. You should see that on the right side of your screen. You can type your questions in the Q&A window and make sure you send the questions to all panelists. We tend to get a lot of questions during these workshops on how to document your work experience and what credit you can get for your education or your military service. Those questions are fine, but we would ask till you wait to send us those questions until after you see that part of the workshop, just in case we are able to answer it there. And we'll go through all of the questions, or at least as many as we can, at the end of our presentation. The presentation itself usually takes about 35 or 40 minutes. We'll leave the last hour and 20 minutes for questions. So that's the plan right now. Anna.
One other item. CSLB is trying to identify resources out there specifically targeting and encouraging women to get a career in construction. If you are a woman looking to get your contractor's license, or you've got some resources you'd like to share with us, please drop an email to social@cslb.ca.gov. cslb.ca.gov. We will repeat this address at the end of today's workshop. We appreciate any information that you are able to share with us.
Okay, thank you. And just a reminder, if you would please, during the times where I'm speaking, if you can just mute, because we are just hearing a little background noise on yours.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. Okay, this information obtained during the webcast is not, nor is it intended to be legal advice. While this webcast does contain general information, including legal guidelines for contractor license applications, it does not contain definitive statements of the law and may not reflect the most current legal developments in the construction industry. Such guidelines are communicated or discussed during the webcast are for informational purposes only. So if you have questions about the application of the law for specific situations, you should contact an attorney who is familiar with California construction law or review the 2020 edition of the CSLB publication, California Contractors License Law and Reference Book. You can download it for free through the CSLB website. You do see the bonus link at the bottom of your page. That was one of the bad links we have. So if you could download the presentation, you're going to have a good link there. You can also purchase a copy of the book if you'd rather have a hard copy through LexisNexis, that is the publisher. Again, links at the bottom of the screen for both of those.
Okay, here's a list of what we're going to cover today. We will take you through the process of applying for your California contractor's license. First, who needs a license? Then, why get a contractor's license? The minimum qualifications you'll need to get a license, the types of business entities, the different CSLB license classifications. Then we will spend a lot of time giving you tips to fill out your application, including how to demonstrate your work experience to meet the minimum qualifications. We're also going to talk about fingerprint requirements for a criminal background check. We will help you get ready for the exam or exams you'll need to pass in order to get your license. And then finally, the other things you'll need to have in place before your license is issued. Things such as a bond, insurance.
Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First, who needs a license? Here in California, a state contractor's license is needed for all construction projects priced at $500 or more. That total includes both labor and materials. Now, the law does not let you break down that project into $499 pieces. It's the entire project. Also, you can't charge an hourly rate to get around the $500 threshold. If the hourly cost times the number of hours the job will take totals more than $500 or $500 or more, you need a contractor's license. So what's the definition of a contractor? The definition comes from the state's Business and Professions Code. That is, in this case, it's section 7026.1. We have a link to that code at the top of the page, or in this case, yeah, we do have a link there if you want to download that. So here is the definition. I'll read the entire code, but pay special attention to the part that we've underlined. A contractor is any person consultant to an owner building, firm, association, organization, partnership, business trust, corporation or company who or which undertakes or offers to undertake, purports to have the capacity to undertake, or submits a bid to construct any building or home improvement project or part thereof. So in other words, you don't have to do the work to actually break the law. You must have a contractor's license just to advertise that you can do the construction work, or even to give a bid for the construction job if that bid totals $500 or more.
So you may be asking yourself why you should get a license. Here are a few good reasons. First, you can take pride in being a licensed professional. It shows you've taken the steps to get licensed and that you are serious about your career choice. Also, it allows you to make valuable contributions to your local community. Unlicensed contractors must operate in the shadows and cannot help make their community a better place to live. Next, it allows you to get paid for the work that you do. There is a value to the work done by a licensed professional. Being licensed also gives you legal options if customers don't pay you. Unlicensed contractors do not have a legal right to take someone to court to get paid because the work required a license and they weren't licensed to do the work in the first place. Also, you would be able to use the mechanics lien law. Next, you don't have to look over your shoulder with the fear of getting caught. Contracting without a valid California license can lead to misdemeanor charges. Those caught face a first offense sentence of up to 6 months in jail and or a $5,000 fine and potential administrative. In addition, you may face felony charges if you can to pass yourself off as a licensed contractor by illegally using a license number. Remember, there are no educational requirements to get a license. Also, you do not have to go to a licensed preparation school to get your contractor's license.
So what do you need to get your license? First, it's important to understand that CSLB does not license individuals. We license companies or businesses, which are also called entities. Many entities are one-person operations, but know that every entity, even a one-person operation, must have a qualifier. That's someone who has the minimum experience and is responsible for the operation of the company. Here's a short list of the minimum qualifications you'll need. First, you must be at least 18 years old. You must have either a valid Social Security number or a valid Individual Taxpayer Identification Number, or ITIN. You can qualify the license in one of two ways. First, you can qualify the license by having at least 4 years of experience within the last 10 years as a journey person, foreperson, supervising employee, or a contractor in the trade you're applying for. Or you can get a qualifier for the license who has that required experience. And we'll spend a lot of time talking about how you demonstrate the experience on your application in just a few minutes. In some cases, a college education, either a bachelor or an associate's degree, may count towards meeting some of the experience requirements. If you have a 4-year degree in a construction-related field, for example, a number of state universities offer a construction management program. Having that type of degree may give you the maximum 3 years education in lieu of work experience. In this situation, you'll have to have the additional 12 months of field experience to meet the minimum of 4-year work experience required within the last 10 years. But there's also some business classes you can take that may earn you up to 2 years of educational credit. But that's a very topic specific, and we recommend that you call our licensing information center to discuss the specific classes with a supervisor before you submit your application. You can also send an email to licensing@cslb.ca.gov. We'll give that email address out later on. We'll be able to answer some of your general questions here. If you get too specific, we may not be able to give you a foolproof answer. Also, completing an apprenticeship program may count towards meeting some of the experience requirements. Some of your military service may count as well. Towards the bottom of the page, you can see that we have a bonus link to our CSLB Military Application Assistance Program where you can learn more. The license qualifier must pass 2 different exams, both taken on a computer at one of CSLB's test centers. One exam is on California business law. The other is on the specific trade covered by that license. We also have limited specialty licenses, which we'll discuss later. Those licenses only require that the qualifier take the law and business exam.
As we mentioned, the qualifier must take and pass the required exams or qualify for a waiver. We are not going to spend a lot of time on the waiver, only to note that you might be able to request a waiver for taking one or both exams if very specific situations occur. We recommend that you look at the CSLB website for more information on those specific situations. We have included a bonus link at the bottom of the page. The qualifier must also undergo the criminal background check. We will go more in depth on that in a few minutes. After the license is issued, the qualifier must be in a position to exercise direct supervision and control of the company's operations. They are also responsible for all workmanship issues. It is also important to note here that if you are trying to get a B general building contractor license and you hire subcontractors to work under you, you are responsible as a project's prime contractor for the work that they do.
The next thing you're going to need to do is to determine before you apply for your license which type of entity that your business is going to be. Here they are. There are 4 types. First is a sole ownership, and that's where the owner or a responsible managing employee may serve as a license qualifier. About 64% of the contracting businesses in California are sole ownership. Second is a corporation, where either of the current officers designated as the responsible managing officer or the responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. About 32% of the licensees in California are corporations. A distant third is a partnership, where either of the general partners or a responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. That's about 2% of our licensees. Finally, there is a limited liability company, or LLC, where a responsible managing member, responsible managing manager, responsible managing officer, or a responsible managing employee may serve as the qualifier. Only about 1.5% of California construction companies are LLCs.
Now let's talk about license classifications. A contractor's license can include multiple classifications, although you must select one when filing your application. While there are more than 40 license classifications in California, they all fall under three distinct categories. There is a bonus link to our classifications list at the bottom of the page. First is Class A, or General Engineering Contractors. These are contractors who deal with fixed works that require specialized engineering knowledge and skill. A contractors are the ones that build projects such as freeways, skyscrapers, and dams. Today, there are just over 19,000 A contractors in the state. Next is Class B, or General Building Contractors. This is the largest class of contractors in California, with more than 133,000. B contractors have a principal business dealing with any structure built, being built, or to be built that requires as part of its construction at least two unrelated building trades or crafts. In other words, a B contractor shouldn't take a prime contract for any project involving trades other than framing or carpentry unless the prime contract requires at least two unrelated building trades other than framing or carpentry. There is no limitation on B contractors to stop them from taking on projects that only include framing or carpentry. The final classes are C, or specialty contractors. These licenses are for construction work that requires special skills and whose principal contracting business involves the use of specialized building trades. Examples for this class include C10 electrical contractors, C20 HVAC contractors, C27 landscaping contractors, C33 plumbing contractors, C39 roofing contractors, C46 solar contractors, and C53 swimming pool contractors. And that's just to name a few. There are also 30 limited specialty classes under the C61 classification. These include the C61/D49 Tree Service Limited class. More than 209,000 contractors hold a C license in California.
Okay, next we're going to take a very quick look at the two forms that you're going to need. On the left is the license application. On the right is the certification of work experience. You can get these forms on the CSLB website. There is a bonus link at the bottom of the page, so be sure to download the presentation. We'll give you a closer look at the different sections on each of these forms a little bit later. Okay, let's go ahead and break down the steps of the application process. First, you're going to need to identify who is going to be the qualifier for your license. If you're using an RME or a responsible managing employee as your qualifier, determine if he or she can qualify for the waiver exam. Next, make sure you complete the correct application. And you've got two options. One is the application for the original contractor's license. That's what most people will use. The second is if you are going to go for an examination waiver, it's the application for original contractor's license with the examination waiver, 7065. Okay, the next step is to determine your company's name. Take a look at the actual application for some examples. We've got a long list on there. Some things you'll need to keep in mind are that the name cannot be misleading or imply that you qualify for a license classification other than the one you're getting. For example, if you're going to apply for a C36 plumbing license, you can't have a name of John Smith Plumbing, Construction, Heating, and Drywall. Corporate and LLC names must match exactly the name that you've got registered with the California Secretary of State's office. Also, the names of everyone on your Secretary of State registration must be listed on your CSLB application. Again, that's for corporations or LLCs, not for sole ownerships. So again, the names must match exactly with what's at the Secretary of State's office, and the name of everyone on your Secretary of State's registration must be listed on your CSLB application. You can also use what's called a DBA, which stands for Doing Business As. The main thing to remember here is the DBA cannot be misleading, and you must use that name in all advertising and on all your contracts.
Next, you'll want to get together certifications to support your work experience. You should do this even if you apply for an exam waiver. Feel free to use multiple pages if necessary. Next, be sure to note if you are a military veteran. Some of your military service may be used to meet your 4 years of experience qualifications. Also, your application may be expedited through our Military Application Assistance Program. There is a bonus link at the bottom of the screen for more information on that program. To participate, you must have had an honorable discharge. Be sure to include a copy of your military DD-214 paperwork showing your honorable discharge with your application. The next couple of items are basic but important. Proofread for any missing information. Make sure you have provided an answer to all necessary fields. Second, don't forget to sign and date the application. Finally, determine if you need a special accommodation to take your exams. If so, complete a request form and submit with your application. We'll talk about the use of a translator a little bit later.
Next is a closer look at our fingerprint requirements, which are used for criminal background checks. This is a list of those who must submit a full set of fingerprints to CSLB, depending on the type of business entity. All applicants, each corporate officer, each partner, each owner, the responsible managing employee, and all home improvement salespersons. If you're in California, you must submit fingerprints electronically with what's called LiveScan. You can get an updated list of LiveScan locations around California broken down by county on the Attorney General's website. We've got the link here, or you can simply go to the Attorney General's website and do a search for LiveScan. You'll also see we have a link at the bottom of the screen to the fingerprint information page on our CSLB website. If you're out of state, it's going to be a little bit tougher for you to get us fingerprints. That's because the law requires that you submit hard copies of them the old-fashioned way. And those can take anywhere between 3 and 6 months for the FBI Department of Justice process. So when things are more with the COVID health emergency, you may want to actually consider traveling to California to get your electronic live scans done here.
So what happens if you have any criminal convictions? CSLB may deny your license for the following reasons. First, if your conviction is substantially related to the duties, functions, and qualifications of a contractor. Also, if your conviction involves fraud or a violent crime. There are other factors CSLB also takes into consideration. They are the nature and severity of the crimes, the amount of time that has passed since a conviction, and any evidence of rehabilitation that you submit to CSLB. CSLB evaluates felony criminal convictions within 7 years of the application date. So for applications filed this year, we would look back to 2013. For misdemeanor criminal convictions, we would look back 3 years from the application date to 2017. That's unless the convictions are for a violent felony, certain sexual crimes, or financial crimes related to construction. CSLB denies only 1% of the total applications we get based on the criminal conviction.
Okay, the next section is probably the most important of the entire workshop and the part of the application that causes the most headaches for our applicants. It's how you demonstrate your work experience on your application. Remember, the license qualifier needs 4 years of experience within the last 10 years in the classification for which you're applying. That means at least 4 years of experience since 2010. The experience must be at no less than at a journeyman level, or as a foreman, supervising employee, contractor, or owner-builder. A journeyman is defined as an experienced worker who is fully qualified, as opposed to a trainee who can perform the trade without supervision, or one who has completed an apprenticeship program.
There is a limited amount of space on the application to show your certified work experience, so feel free to use additional pages if needed and simply attach at the end of the work experience form. Use as many certifications of work experience forms as you need to prove the required 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. Use a different form for each certifier. Be as accurate as possible. Make sure the person certifying your work describes the actual work you performed and the dates in which you performed them. We will now be providing some examples of both good and unacceptable descriptions to demonstrate work experience. Do not copy and paste this information directly into your application. They are just examples.
Okay, so at the top of the chart we're going to be showing over the next few slides is the classification and the type of experience that you're trying to demonstrate. The first example is a journey person experience. The overall theme we'll keep repeating here is the more specific the description you can give us, the better. So note, the work experience form should be completed by your certifier. That's somebody who has the knowledge and observed your work experience for the classification you're applying for. And that person does not, repeat, they do not have to be a licensed contractor.
So our first example is for the Class B general building contractor. The best type of description your certifier would use for a journey person experience is to be specific. Journey person experience must include hands-on work. like this. Bob performed rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. An unacceptable description would be something more generic, something like this. Residential general building trades. For a 4-person experience, the description must include some hands-on work and/or supervisory work. Here's an example for the best type of description. Bob oversaw other staff at job sites performing rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, something unacceptable would be something more generic, something like this. Residential general building trades. For supervising employee experience, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at that supervisor level. An example is, as a construction lead on multiple projects, Bob supervised rough and finished carpentry, concrete forming and pours, rough out plumbing and electrical, interior exterior painting, and flooring on residential homes. Again, something unacceptable would be something generic like this. Residential general building trades. For out-of-state contractor experience, the description must include examples of work done that were out of state, military, on federal land, or work for a government entity. Applicants can qualify as a journey person, a 4-person, or a supervising employee. Tip: specific about your duties and your employment circumstances. Our next example is for a C27 landscaping contractor. First, for experience at the journeyman level. The best type of description your certifier would use would be, Jane performed landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete and mow strips, and pathways, and tree pruning. An unacceptable explanation would be gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 landscaping contractor, the best work experience description for a 4-person would be something like this. Jane oversaw other staff at a job site performing landscape construction, maintenance, and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. Again, something unacceptable would be a description like this, something very generic. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. For a C27 supervising employee, the description should include an explanation of how you arrived at the supervisor level. The best description would be, as a construction lead on multiple projects, applicant supervised landscape construction, maintenance and installation of sprinklers, ground plants, low voltage lighting, ornamental yard art, concrete mow strips, and pathways and tree pruning. Unacceptable here for the supervising employee would be something more generic, something like this. Gardening, yard maintenance, planting. So as you can see, we want something that's more detailed, has more information. Finally, for out-of-state contractors, the same guidance that we showed you for general building contractors. Be sure to include examples of your out-of-state work, as well as work that you did for the military, on federal lands, or for a government entity. Be sure to be specific when you describe your duties and also your employment circumstances. By law, CSLB must randomly review and verify all the information provided on at least 3% of all the applications we receive. Our next 3 slides run down the acceptable documentation you can use to support your work experience in the event that your application was selected and you were asked to provide this additional documentation. The supporting documentation should not be mailed in with your application. You only need to provide this information if you are requested by a CSLB staff. On the lower right of the screen, you'll see a link to the publication on our website, along with additional information on experience documentation. If you look at the chart, you can see that the first column is for documents you can use if you were employed by a licensed contractor. The second column is for documenting your experience if you've been self-employed. The third column is for documentation you will need if you are applying for a Class B general building contractor license and need to use owner-builder experience to meet that experience qualification. Here's the next page of acceptable documentation. Again, if you click on the link to view, you can print this publication. Here's the final page of acceptable documentation. If you do not have this information readily available, you may want to begin to gather it now, just in case you were asked to provide it in the future. Remember, your goal is that you're trying to demonstrate 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. CSLB may contact the certifier of experience or other parties to verify this experience.
Okay, one other note. CSLB does get more than 1,000 applications every month, so our application processing staff has seen it all. They've got two pieces of advice they wanted us to pass on. First, don't cut and paste from this presentation. Also, don't try to get around having to take the trade exam by applying for multiple subcategories under the C61 limited specialty classification. Okay, that's the content you'll need to fill out your application. But before getting it to CSLB, please double check to make sure you didn't miss anything. Be sure to sign it and date it as well. You'd be surprised how many people forget to do that. And then we have to send it back and get it redone. It takes more time for it. Also, don't forget to include the all-important $330 application fee. You'll pay the $200 initial license fee after you pass your exam or exams. So $330 now for the app fee, $200 later after you pass your exams. Then put your application package in the mail to CSLB. You can also hand deliver to one of our public counters. And we've got a bonus link at the bottom of the screen to our different office locations.
Now that we have gone through the information you'll need to include, here's a closer look at the application itself so you can see where it goes. This is section 1. This is where you're going to list your business name. Remember, when selecting a business name, make sure that the name that you have selected is compatible with the classifications and the entity that you are applying for. Make sure it's not misleading. If your business is a corporation or an LLC, you will need to make sure that the name you provide in this section here matches exactly the business name that you have registered with the Secretary of State. In line number 2 is where you will indicate what classification you are applying for. The mailing address and phone number that you list here in section 3A and 3C will be made public on CSLB's website once you are licensed. In section 2 of the application, you will select your business entity. If you are applying for a corporation or an LLC, you will need to provide your registration number provided to you by the Secretary of State. Make sure to pay extra attention to the instructions in this section pertaining to the entity for which you are applying. In section 3, you will list the qualifier's information. Remember, the qualifier is a person that meets the experience requirements and will be responsible for the direct supervision and control of construction projects. The qualifier will be the person taking the examinations. On line 6, you will list any previous or current license numbers you've held. You will also need to list the percentage of new business owned by the qualifier. For example, if you are the only person that will be listed on the license, you would enter 100% here. On line number 7, you will need to indicate what position will be held by the qualifier. Each entity has different personnel requirements. You will need to make sure that you have listed all positions depending on the entity you have selected. You can find more information on this on page 2 through 4 of the application instructions. Line number 8 is where you're going to sign and date your application. Section number 4 is where you're going to list the personnel information for all the remaining personnel that will be listed on your license. For example, if you're applying for a corporation, you will need to indicate who will be the responsible managing officer or employee, president, secretary, and treasurer. Again, more information can be found on page 4 of the application instructions. If you will have more than 4 people on your license, you can make additional copies of this page and include it with your application. For corporations and LLCs, you want to make sure that all personnel that you have listed with the Secretary of State must be listed here in this section. Again, if you need to have more than 4 people, then you can go ahead and make copies of this form here. All personnel that will be listed on the license must sign the application here in section 4. Section 5 is a series of yes or no questions, so we're not going to cover those here. But section 6 is where you see the qualifier, education, apprenticeship, licensure, and military. You may be granted credit towards the 4-year experience requirement based on your education. Question number 17 asks if you have completed an educational or apprenticeship program. You will need to submit official sealed transcripts if you would like to be considered for this credit. If you attended formal training or an apprenticeship program, you will need to provide a certification of completion. Get those sealed transcripts sent to you, then include it with your application packet. Do not have the program send transcripts directly to CSLB. You don't want to take the chance that in case they were not able to match them up with your application. So make sure that they send them to you, you send them in with your application. As long as they're sealed, it won't be a problem. CSLB may grant you up to 3 years of credit based on your education. The credit is not given on a year-to-year basis, meaning if you have a 2-year college degree, you won't necessarily be granted 2 years of credit towards the experience requirement. You may qualify for this credit regardless of when you completed your education. The 10-year time frame does not apply to education. You may also apply for this credit even if your education was received out of the country. If your degree is in any other language other than English, it must be translated. Now we will discuss the certification of work experience. Part 1 will be filled out by you, the applicant. Here you will list the information for your employer where you gained your experience. If you were self-employed when you gained the experience, please make sure to check the box in line number 2. If you're applying for a B general construction license and will be using experience obtained while working on your own project, make sure to mark the box in line number 4. Part number 2 of the work experience certification will be filled out by a certifier. In this section, the certifier must include the dates in which you obtained the experience. They must also select if you were working on a part-time or full-time basis. Keep in mind that if you were working on a part-time basis, you're only going to receive 50% of the credit for that time, which means you will need to provide 8 years of experience within the last 10 years so that you can meet that 4-year requirement. On line number 6, your certifier will need to list the duties that you performed or supervised that are considered critical for the classification that you are applying for. You can read a description of critical duties and see this description of classification booklet available on our website. Now remember, we don't want you to copy and paste the description from the booklet. This is only to give you an idea of what CSLB considers to be a critical duty for the classification that you are applying. Your certifier should complete this section in their own words and be as complete and accurate as possible. The final part of the work experience certification is also to be completed by your certifier. They need to list their relationship to you and provide their contact information. Lastly, they will need to sign and date the certification. The next form we're going to be discussing is the Owner Builder B General Building Construction Project Experience form. This form only needs to be completed if you are applying for a B General Construction license and you want to receive experience credit for working on projects on your own property. A separate form is required for each project on your property, and the experience must be verified through building permit, final inspections, and other documentation. You will need to list the building permit number on line number 6. On line number 7, you will need to provide the scope of the project. In boxes 8 through 10, you will need to provide more detailed information about the project. Question number 11 asks if other general construction contractors worked on the project with you and what trades did they perform. Remember, this information should be as complete and accurate as possible.
Okay, a lot of information there that Anna just covered. So I also want to let you know as while Anna was doing that, I tried to go through a lot of the questions, answer the ones I could quickly take care of. So as we're going through this, if you want to take a look at some of the questions that are there, maybe somebody has asked something that you wanted to ask, take a look at some of the answers. Some of the things I have purposely left for Anna and I to take care of at the end when we actually have time for the Q&A that we can talk about. So I've answered some of them there. Can go ahead and continue. I see more questions coming in as we're speaking. So also, we want to let you know that it's a good time to remind you that we are recording the workshop. We will post the video on our YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch just in case you've missed anything. Okay, so now you've got your application submitted. How do you check the status of the application? Here's 2 resources. First, there is a secured check. You'll need your application fee number, a contractor PIN number to get your update. We will send you that information after we receive, accept, and post your completed application. The second way is to look online at our processing times. Each week, we update our website with the date that we receive the paperwork for a specific process. So look for the date being worked on, and you'll know that the date, if the date shown is after the date that we likely received your paperwork, then it's likely we're busy working on your application. As you can imagine, CSLB does receive hundreds, if not thousands, of documents every day. We process them in the order that they're received. So don't be surprised also if you see a check has been cashed, but you're not getting information about your application being processed. The cashier's unit is the first place where the checks, when the envelope is opened, the check gets pulled out, that goes to a whole different unit. So they're not the same people that are actually processing it. So chances are your check will be cashed before your application is being processed. So don't be surprised or don't wonder why it's been cashed if the application hasn't been processed. Obviously, it takes a lot longer to process an application than it does to put a check in a stack of checks going to the bank. Okay, so be sure to take extra time to get your application right so you won't have to have it sent back to you to correct it, and then you have to start the whole process again. Now, when your application has been accepted, CSLB will send you a notice to appear for your examination and a study guide. You should get your exam notice at least 3 weeks before your exam date. And with our test centers now reopened, we've added an additional session in the late afternoon and early evening to help us catch up with the 3 months that we were closed. If you're an applicant who's we've got our, again, 8 test centers around the state of California. We would encourage you to take your exam at the center closest to you. And in alphabetical order, the centers are in Berkeley, which actually is closed right now. Also Fresno, Norwalk, Oxnard, Sacramento, San Bernardino, San Diego, and San Jose. Now, if you're an applicant whose first language is not English and you don't feel confident taking your exams in English, we do allow you to use a translator. The translator who you provide simply reads the exam questions to you. Question number 16 on the application asks if you need to use a translator to complete your examination. The translator must be approved by CSLB in advance. You can't just show up on the day of your exam at a test center with somebody to translate the exam for you. Also, we've got study guides available for each exam. Included in each study guide, you'll find a list of sections and topics covered by the exam. They also include sample questions, how each section of the exam is weighted, and recommended resources that you can use to prepare for your examination. The study guides are available on our website. There is a bonus link for them at the bottom of your screen. We did get a couple questions about that, so that's where you're going to find the study exams. Also, when you get an exam date, make sure you don't miss it. If you do fail to appear for the exam, you're going to have to pay a non-refundable $60 fee to reschedule. That fee can be waived once with documented evidence of a medical emergency or other circumstance beyond your control.
We do have some new COVID-19 procedures in place for test centers. Here they are. Plan to arrive at least 15 minutes early for your exam. Give yourself extra time to get yourself checked in. You must wear a face mask or other face covering. If you appear ill, you will have to reschedule your exam for at least 5 days later at no additional charge. And you will not be admitted into the test center more than 15 minutes prior to your exam time. We've also produced a short video, What to Expect on Test Day, that you can watch on our YouTube channel. The link is at the bottom of your screen.
My handsome man doing that video. You'll take your exam on a touchscreen computer. So before starting, you'll see an on-screen tutorial that'll take you through the process. Now, the exam itself consists of multiple choice questions. You'll see a space on each question where you can, if you'd like, submit a comment about that question. You'll get 3.5 hours to complete each exam. Don't arrive late, or you may have the amount of time that you've got to complete your exam will be reduced. And you will get your results at the end of the exam.
If you don't pass the exam, you will not be allowed to review the questions you missed, but you will get a statement showing how you did on each section of the examination. You can reschedule the exam as many times as you need to within an 18-month period, as long as you pay the non-refundable $60 rescheduling fee.
Okay, after you pass your exam, what happens next? First, you'll need to pay the $200 for your initial license fee, which will be good for 2 years. You'll also need to complete an online asbestos open book exam. Plus, you'll need to file your required $15,000 contractor surety bond, and possibly some other bonds depending on what type of business entity you've got. And you'll need to get your required insurance policy. If you've got employees, you'll need to get workers' compensation insurance. If you're going to be an LLC, you'll also need liability insurance. So be sure to see our website for those amounts. Please note that your insurance company or broker can submit your insurance information to CSLB directly on the website, and it will be processed automatically in real time. So if you don't have employees, you must file a workers' compensation exemption with CSLB, and you can do that online as well.
In about 5 to 10 business days, CSLB will send you a wall certificate and plastic pocket license card. Display the wall certificate in your main office and chief place of business. Carry your pocket card with you, especially in situations where you're going to be soliciting business, talk to potential customers, or signing contracts. We encourage consumers to ask you to see your pocket license. If you're going to have salespeople working for you, be sure to get them registered as a home improvement salesperson with CSLB. Check our website for more information on how to do that. Your license will be good for 2 years. It will expire on the last day of the month when it was issued. For example, a license issued today, September 4th, 2020, will expire on September 30th, 2022. Be sure to put that expiration date on your calendar, in your phone, anywhere you need to remind yourself so that you don't forget. CSLB will send you a renewal notice in the mail approximately 60 days before it expires, but ultimately it is your responsibility to renew your license on time.
Here are a couple of other important deadlines to keep in mind. First, notify CSLB within 30 days if you move or you change your business address. Your renewal notice will be sent to the address of record that we've got on file. So if you're not there anymore, you're probably not going to get it and take a chance at your license expiring. Plus, the Postal Service will not forward state government mail. Finally, notify CSLB within 30 days of all changes to personnel on your license, especially when it involves the qualifier of the license.
Once you get your license and get to work, you might want to hire someone as a salesperson or to solicit and sell and negotiate home improvement contracts on your behalf outside of your place of business. This person is called a home improvement salesperson, or HIS. Without an HIS, the official personnel record on license are the only people who can sell, solicit, negotiate, or execute a contract. That includes individual contractors, license qualifiers, partners, corporation officers, and LLC responsible managing officers, members, managers, or employees. An HIS can work for more than one contractor. A licensee must notify CSLB in writing when they either associate or disassociate an HIS with their license.
There's a couple of exceptions to note here. First, for those of you who only schedule appointments for the contractor or registered at HIS, you don't have to have that. And bona fide service and repair people, yes, these are the folks that you call out for repairs, including things like air conditioning, heating, and plumbing. But those service and repair people are limited to the work that was initially requested by the buyer or the homeowner. For example, if your AC goes out and you call an HVAC company to come out, the service person does not have to be a registered salesperson. But if they go beyond the repair itself and sell you a new HVAC system, they would have to be a registered HIS. Also, don't employ unregistered salespeople. That subjects you to administrative discipline, and the salesperson might get a citation or possibly even a criminal misdemeanor. Okay, so that's the presentation. It is time now to answer your questions. So put aside our notes. What we're going to do, Ann and I will turn on our camera so you guys can see us, so it's not so one way just looking at a slide. So we'll go ahead and turn our cameras on here, and we'll start going through the list of questions that you provided to us. What I'm going to do is, if you're following along, I'm going to just go up to the top of the list, and the ones I haven't answered, we're going to go ahead and try to get through. Okay. First one is, how long does it currently take to process an application? I have a waiver for an exam form, and I'm mailing my application with a check today. Anna, what can you tell us about processing times?
So processing times are available on our website. You could go currently right now on our website, look at processing times, and it will tell you what date received we're working on. And so you can check your status by date that you send it in.
Okay, next question. I have worked for more than 10 years in the construction industry in South Florida as a project manager, plus I have a master's degree in project management. Is that valid to satisfy a criteria?
What we encourage you to do, remember the requirement is 4 years within the last 10 years. And so what we would encourage you to do is to send in your work experience certificate. Somebody has to fill it out for you, complete the certificate, mail it in, and then once it lands on a technician's desk, they will be able to tell you how much credit they're going to be able to give you.
Okay, next one is if a person has a C23, which is an ornamental metal contractor, do they have to take the law and business exam again? Well, if they've already got if they've already taken it once and have gotten the license, it's a little unclear, but you only have to take it and pass it once. I know we had another question there about inactive status, and if they needed to take the exams again, the answer would be no. So if somebody already has a license, they only have to take the law and business exam. If you're in a situation where you've got a license and let's say you've got a C10 license, an electrical license, and you want to add a solar license classification to it, you don't have to take the law and business exam again. You only have to take the trade one. So the law and business, you only have to take once, as long as you're keeping your license going.
Correct.
Anything to add?
No, that's correct.
All right. Okay. Hazmat contractors, is that considered a C class?
We have a list of, we have a description of classification booklet that lists all of the classifications that we offer. And so what you want to do is take a look at that list there. It gives you a brief description of what you can do, what type of work you can do under each classification that CSLB offers. And so you'll want to take a look at that and see which is the best license classification for the work that you're doing.
Yeah, and there is a hazmat certification. We also do have an asbestos abatement contractor, which is something that works with a lot of hazardous materials. Okay, next, downloading a slideshow. Right now, if what you want to do, the presentation is available. Go to our website, slb.ca.gov. Up at the top of the screen, there is a green banner which advertises this workshop. You just go there, it says download presentation. Try to do it within the next couple hours because we'll probably remove that later this afternoon. But go ahead, please download it. That's how you do that. Okay, next question is, I have a fraud misdemeanor that's 15 years old. Will it show on my background check or will it automatically disqualify?
So with that, as we mentioned, we're looking for certain specific information, right? We're looking back 7 years for felonies, 3 years for misdemeanors. So that's what we're looking for. But yes, sometimes it's been the case where people have been told that something's been expunged, erased from your record. But since we compare our information with the FBI and also with the Department of Justice, oftentimes they do show up on your record. That doesn't automatically disqualify you, but CSLB will be aware.
Okay, the next one, as a project manager for a B general contractor license, what is required? I'm guessing it says, I don't know that word, but I'm guessing it's meant to describe this qualification. Again, looking for experience for the B, and then the next one also, Anna, if you want to handle, talks about owner builders. So if you can talk just again about the specifics with the B license and owner builders.
Okay. Just so you know, Rick, for some reason I can't see the questions. So if you can read them to me, that'd be great.
Okay, I sure will.
Yes. So what was the question about the owner builder, Rick? I'm sorry.
Well, there was a couple questions. First one, just asking about explain more about the owner builder. It was kind of a generic thing, but maybe you can just go over. I know you had the slide that talked about the form for the
Sure. So with the owner builder is only going to be filled out by people who are trying to get a B license, the general construction license, and you are trying to use experience for projects that you own, your own project. So that form is very specific. You would have to have a permit number. It has to be verifiable. It has to be through either permits, as we mentioned, or also final inspections, things of that nature. But you are able to receive some sort of credit to qualify towards the 4 years of experience.
Okay, next question has to do with how long does it take to process an application after fingerprinting? Well, I'll just part of that depends on what they're going to find when they do the fingerprinting. If there's some kind of criminal history that you've got there, especially if it's something from many years ago or it's something from another state, some things that actually can take the FBI or DOJ a little bit longer to clear. So those are the things that kind of take time. And you can maybe speak more to it, is for the normal applicants, how long does it take for them to get cleared off fingerprint?
there's so many caveats. There's so many different. Everybody's going to be a little bit different, only because, some we send this off to the Department of Justice and to the FBI, and so some come back very quickly, some take longer, and so also the amount of time that it takes for you to return the when a tech gets assigned your application and they're working on it, they will send, if they have questions for you, the turnaround time that also changes the processing times. So there's different caveats, but in general, what you can do again is our process that are on our website currently, and you can see what date they're working on.
Okay, one that kind of ties into that is they've said, I've already submitted my application, waiting on a time to take the test. When do I have to do my fingerprints? If you can just what the process, and they're going to get that information about their fingerprints.
Sure. So you can do it simultaneously. You don't have to wait to have your fingerprint results back before taking your examination. What happens is you send in your application. We will send you both your live scan packet for you to go and have your fingerprints done, and we will also send you a test date. Usually, your test date is 3 weeks out from the time that your application posts.
All right, next question. Do past supervisors need to verify, or can any employee, a lead person, a coworker, verify your work?
Good question. So it doesn't have to be a licensed contractor, and it doesn't have to be your previous supervisor. Anybody who has knowledge that you have at least 4 years of experience within the last, and we're working at a journeyman level. If there's something you, it doesn't be a supervisor. On the work search form we went through, there are categories at the bottom of the page. It can be a foreperson, a fellow employee, there's different at the bottom. If you're union, somebody can also by experience. Not
okay. Next question: to register RME, which is responsible managing, you would use to qualify your license. Do they have to simultaneously register to make their license active?
Their license has to be inactive. Yes, it does inactive.
Okay. Another thing I would caution those of you who are looking to get qualifiers. There are companies that are out there offering you up with somebody who can qualify your license. We would just encourage you to be really careful about doing that. Sometimes it might be a situation that person is had their license for 20, 30, 40 plus years. They're basically retired and they're keeping their inactive status. The company may try to talk them into qualifying license, pay them a little money every month on the side. The person doesn't necessarily realize they're supposed to be be in charge of the construction operation. It just very scary. But if you're going to be looking for companies that can help you with pairing you up with be very careful. Be sure that you've got a lot of conversations. You know who that person's going to be. You've got what you feel is going to be a good working relationship, but they understand the role that they play. Because if there ends up being problems, that the board is going to be looking at them as well. So don't get yourself into a tough situation. So word to the wise, just be careful. There are companies down there that may be perfectly legitimate and it connects you with a good qualifier, but just be careful if there's something kind of flaky, just trying to pay somebody every month to let them use their qualifications to get your license. I'll get off my soapbox now. Next question is, need any type of certification, training, or education in order to apply for a contractor's license? I have over 4 years of experience, but it's all through.
So the qualifications, the requirements would be the same for any contractor license. 4 years of experience within the last 10 years. There is no educational requirement.
Good time again to reiterate, you don't have to go to one of the contractor license training schools. You certainly can if you think that's going to help you with the exam. We do again measure for minimum competency. So you don't have to be, an A contractor or an A like a grade. We're looking for minimum competency. So you don't the education requirements. The experience really is the big thing, and actually it may put you ahead of some people who have, some of the educational experiences because you're actually out there doing the work. Okay. Next question is: I am the only one with the experience. My partner. If only one with the experience, can my partner be a part of the license?
Yes. So partnership or corporation where there's more person on the license, you would let us know who the qualifier of the license is. As a reminder, qualifier is a person with the experience. That's the person who is going to be responsible to have supervision of construction projects. They are all the person who takes the exams.
Okay, next question. Is there a process for being added to an existing license?
So you can be added to an existing license. The licensee just needs to fill out a form and added to a license.
Okay, next question. Are there any resources for obtaining insurance and the insurance requirements? Well, we certainly do on our websites. We do have a link to, especially like workers' comp, but boy, there's just do a Google search. There are tons of companies around that do the insurance that specialize in construction, that and the surety bonds. That's probably better. We obviously can't recommend certain companies, but a quick Google search, you're going to find plenty of companies out there. Without having to fill out the application, is there a way to see where we're at with our credited work experience?
No, unfortunately, there's no way where somebody can look at your application before your certificate or your education before you turn in your application. It's once it hits at the text desk, they have a formula. They look at all of the classes that you have taken that they can give you credit for, and then they will let you know.
Okay, next question. I'll skip over. It kind of dealt with the same thing. Is there any way around the 4 years of experience, such as classes? So, yeah, you can get partial credit, but it's got to be something that's really connected to the kind of license you're getting. What if the apprenticeship is in another field other than the application?
And then just as a reminder, the maximum you can get is 3 years. It's not on a year-to-year basis. Just because you have the 4 years doesn't mean automatically you're going to get the 3 years, but like again, the technician will let you know. Apprenticeship program, we're looking for an apprenticeship program. It has to be linked to the classification that you're going to be going into. Yes.
Yeah, maybe it's an extreme example, but if you were trying to get a doctor's license, but you didn't have an apprenticeship in something medical, well, I'd hate to be going to that doctor. Probably the same kind of thoughts. Okay, my husband has the work experience for other contractors for more than 10 years. Can I get a license with his experience?
If you were both going to be on a license, he would be the qualifier. You could both be on the license. You can't just use his experience for your own license, but if you were both on the license, he would be the qualifier because he has the experience. He would have to take the examination.
Now, can it be a situation where he can still, if he's already working for another contractor, can he do that and also serve as a qualifier for his own license or license with him and his wife?
You can be a qualifier on more than one license, yes.
Okay, let's see. Next question. Can someone be a certifier for an A license and not have a license? Yeah, again, that goes back to the experience. You don't have to be a licensed contractor to be able to certify somebody else's experience. If my experience is with an apartment company, properties owned by their employer, and they don't have a contractor's license, yeah, we're really concerned about the kind of work you're doing. They can certify that. Since they don't have a contractor's license, that wasn't required for them, so we're not going to hold that against you. Again, as I said, I think at the beginning, is we really want to work with you and anything you can. Our goal is to make sure that we've got qualified contractors out there performing the work. Anything you can do to prove that you've got the qualifications, we want to help you get there. So we don't want to be an impedance, but we want to make sure you've got the experience and the consumers are protected. How can a self-employed be certified? Now, we talked about this a couple times. The biggest thing, and then I'll let you speak a little bit again, are things like you need some kind of things, receipts, building permits, things like that. And
we also went over the document that you can download from our website. There was a link that you can go back and click on. It lets you know what are acceptable documentation that CSLB would accept in the event that we asked you for further clarification to prove your experience as a self-employed person. There's a special column just for self-employed, so make sure you take a look at that.
Okay, and so what about situations, it says here, where there were home projects where there were no permits that were required for it?
If it's not verifiable, it's not something that we can take a look at. We won't be able to use it.
Okay, if the applicant is changing from a sole ownership to a corporation, will he or she lose the license to the corporation?
If you are going from a sole ownership to a corporation, you can do that. You would have to reapply. You're going to submit an application for a corporation. You can take your number with you. The reverse is not the same. If you were in a corporation, wanted to leave the corporation, now you want to apply for for a sole ownership license, you cannot take the license number with you. So there's special circumstances in each case.
Okay, next question talks about the women's resource list we talked about at the very beginning. Right now, we're just trying to compile that. We've had some questions. One of our board members went through their Senate confirmation hearing, and there were some questions about women getting into the construction industry, and they've asked us to do a little bit of work. And so what we're trying to do at this point, we're trying to identify some resources that are available out there to women, find out if there's any voids in what's available, maybe that we can step in and put together some information. So if you've got any information, we'll give the address again at the end, please send us any resources that you're familiar with. Or just let us know that you'd like to be kept in touch as we actually work to develop resources and make things available. The address, we'll give it at the end. It is social@cslb.ca.gov, and we'll show it up on the screen at the end, but social@cslb.ca.gov. Okay, next, can we work out of state with a C46? Now, the license is good for California, so maybe your question is, if you're out of state, can you get a California C46 license? Which the answer would be yes. You don't have to be your business based in California to have a California license, but your California license is not going to do you any good in Nevada or Arizona or Oregon. We do have reciprocity agreements with some of those states where it might help get their license in that state, but a California license is only good in California. We're pretty selfish about that, but that's we do all the work to get your license. We want you to be licensed here. Okay. How long does the application take? We've talked about that one. My ultimate goal is to get a B license. I'll be applying for my welding contractor license in the meantime. If I submit my transcript along with the welding contractor license to get an idea of what business classes will count towards the experience. So I guess at this point they ultimately want to get a B, but they want to get their welding license first. And they're talking about, using the experience.
Okay, so the experience required for the welding would be 4 years of experience in the last 10. Depending on how much credit they give you for your education, your business classes that you took, depending on how much they give you, remember you're looking for 4 years of experience requirement. When you went to apply, you can always add, let's say you start with your welding, you can add other classifications to your license. If you wanted to add the B in the future and you had the experience at that point, you could absolutely add it. There's a different process for that. We have a additional classification application that you would need to fill out, and you would only come back and take the examination for that additional classification, in this case, the B. As long as you can prove the experience, you have to have a certifier, certify your work experience, make sure that you have 4 years experience within the last 10 years. You can add that classification.
Okay. By the way, welding is C60, Anna. You and I, we deal with a lot of the classifications, but some of these we don't get a lot of questions on, so we're always trying to learn. So C60 is welding contractors. Okay, next question is, what type of military experience is accepted for the general contractor B license?
So what you're going to want to do is, as long as you had an honorable discharge, you're going to want to send in your DD 214 paperwork, and then they can tell you how much credit they're going to be able to give you for that. So you would have to supplement it with some hands-on training, hands-on experiences.
Yeah, and the thing about that is look at the website for the experiences. We do have a program in place to help expedite those, and we have people to work with military veterans. So please check that out and take advantage of the resources that are available for you. Next question, do I need a contractor's license for window tinting?
We have a window tinting license for a building.
Probably a D. I'll try to look while you're talking.
So yes, and it would be the same experience requirement. You would have to prove the 4 years within the last 10 years. Have somebody certify that for you.
Okay. I didn't talk long enough. I didn't find it. But anyway, there is one. Look for the classifications on the website. Does a DBA name need to be registered with the Secretary of State's office along with the corporate name?
So again, I'm sorry.
For the Secretary, I just want to mention, for the Secretary of State's, you're only required to file with the Secretary of State's office if you're going to be a corporation or a limited liability company, an LLC. Sole ownership, you don't need to, but you do need to. So the question here again is, what are the rules if you are a corporation or LLC registered with the Secretary of State's? If you have a DBA, does that need to be on your registration with the Secretary of State as well?
We don't require that. Well, whatever you have on registered with the Secretary of State, you want to make sure that everything matches here with us because we do compare. We don't require that you necessarily go and register your DBA with the counties or the cities. You need to check that with your local building official because they may require it. It's not a CSLB requirement.
Okay, next, can I still apply for my license if I have not journeyed out? I've been with the union for 5 years and will journey out in 3 to 4 months. I've worked for myself prior to joining the union, so I would also like to use those skills, I guess, and experience as well.
Mm-hmm. As long as you have 4 years of experience at a journeyman level, in total, you can use both experiences when you were working on your own and also what you've acquired with the union. As long as it's 4 years of experience within the last 10 years, you can combine that experience. Yes.
Okay, the next question talks about exams, asking if they're in Spanish. They are not. But Anna, do you want to talk about the translator and the process? If you
sure, absolutely. So as of right now, we only give the exam in English. You can bring a translator. There is a question number 16 on the application asks if you would like to bring in a translator. So if you check the yes box, we will send you a application that person needs to fill out. Again, you don't want to just show up on your test date with somebody, ready to translate for you. CSLB does not offer translators as well. So you would need to get your person that you would like to serve as your translator pre-approved. And the way it works is that they're sitting in the same room with you, but at a different computer. You are communicating through a headset, and they simply read the question and the 4 answers. You select your answer. They don't know what answer you selected. You move on to the next question.
Okay, next question is, which class would the traffic signal electrician be? I know we've got a few different licenses that have to deal with. There's one, the C31 is construction zone traffic control, C32 parking and highway improvements.
What I would recommend is that you look at our classification booklet, read the description. If in the booklet you do not find the information that you're looking for, what you can do is you can send an email. We have a classification deputy. They need some information. What they would need from you is they would need to know what type of work are you going to be doing? What kind of materials are you going to be doing, using to accomplish it? What's going to be included? What's the scope of work in your contract? You can send in an email. The address is classifications@cslb.ca.gov. Again, classifications with an S at the end, at cslb.ca.gov. And our classification deputy will email you back. It does take a little while, especially now with COVID. It may be 3 weeks before you get a response, but they will respond to you, and they will send you an email.
Now, if you want to find that on our website, the best thing to do is just go to the homepage. There's a search bar on there. Just type in classifications, hit search, and you'll come up not only the booklet that Anna was talking about, but there's also one there in HTML that you can just click on. It takes you to whatever classification is and gives you the explanation. So that's there. Just the search bar is a great feature. If you're having any problems finding anything on the website, the search bar will work really well for you. Okay, next question. Can I assume the same classes will count when I apply for my B class license? I've tried speaking to a supervisor before about this, as stated in the videos, but they've been told that the information cannot be shared with the public. Well, I guess that defeats the purpose of you and I being here. So I guess we'll just go to the question. Will the same classes count when they apply for a B license? I'm assuming that's as opposed to maybe a C classification.
So yes, the classes, what we're looking for are construction-related classes. So if they are good for your C, they'll be good for a B license as well. We're looking for 4 years of experience within the last 10. It doesn't matter when you took your education. You can still use it, but we would need to see your transcript.
Okay, next question. Are there exams that can replace work experience? No. As Anna said, there's some, you can use some of your experience, college trade experience towards it, but there's no exams you can't test out of that to replace the experience. Okay, I work as part-time 32 hours a week. Does that still count as 50%? I've worked for about 8 years for the same company. So 32 hours a week.
Sorry. Okay, so 32 hours. There is it does ask, it's either part-time or full-time, but in the application itself, then it will ask your certifier, whoever you're selecting to be your certifier, to let us know what the equivalent is. So they have to come up with the equivalent of how many, whatever your experience that you acquired with them, what does it translate over? How many years, how many months of experience are they willing to certify you for? so they can fill out that form. And that's going to be part 2 of the certification of work experience form that you'll want to take a look at.
Okay, next question. I am a civil engineer currently working on a company. Can I use the plans that I designed for a wastewater septic system as work experience?
No, you're going to have somebody certify you for 4 years of experience within the last 10. So that's how you initially want to prove your work experience. Somebody has to certify you. In the event that CSLB contacted you, they needed supporting documentation, yes, then you can send those types of documents in. But initially, all you need is somebody to fill out your certification of work experience.
Okay, next question. I took my test about 3 years ago and failed. I need some assistance in being test ready. Unfortunately, I'm not good in testing. Again, there are study guides on our website. We also do list resources. So there's some resources. I encourage you to take a look at the law book that we have there. You can download it for free. You can also pay it. I think it's about $40 or so if you want to buy an actual hard copy of it. But there's a lot of information in the first 150 pages of the book that's really going to help you with the business and law exam. There's a lot of good information there that will really help you. Look at the resources on the specific trade that you're trying to get. Now, there are licensed instruction schools out there. You are not required to go through any of them in order to get the license. But if you think that's something that might be helpful, you might want to check. It can be a significant investment of money, but you want to check. There are good ones and some that may not be quite as good. So do some research, just like you would if you were purchasing anything. But there are resources. But I'd encourage you first to look at the Contractors Board, see the stuff that we have available to you. If you still think you need more, you may want to consider one of the licensed instruction schools. Okay. Does a field inspector qualify as a supervisor for the experience?
If somebody can certify that you have supervisory experience, as long as it's 4 years within the last 10 and somebody's willing to certify and talk to CSLB about your experience, we would be able to look at that.
Okay, next one is I have a regular job, but once in a while there's a job that comes up and one or two that are more than $500. Do I still need a contractor's license? Yeah, the law says any job that's $500 or more, you need to have a license for. It doesn't matter if you do them once in a while or if you do them every day or every week. Yeah, the law is just how big the job is. Don't break them down into $499 jobs. You might find yourself, especially if you're advertising for work, you might find yourself being invited to a sting operation. So $500. Where can I get study guides? We just talked about that. If you have a problem finding them on our website, use the search bar on the homepage. Just type in study guides and you'll go right to them. Okay, next question has to do with, looks like criminal background. If a misdemeanor was committed in 2011, will that be a factor in criminal reviews? No, we're only looking back, I think, 3 years, right, Anna, for misdemeanors?
For misdemeanors, correct.
Yes, that was 9 years ago, so it would not be looked at. Next question, do moving violations, speeding tickets, qualify to be listed as, it says misdemeanor? They will come up on your criminal background check. The laws have changed. You're not now required to disclose your criminal history. It'll show up on the work that we do. Something like a speeding ticket is not going to keep you from getting your contractor's license. As we mentioned in the presentation, only about 1% of the contractors are kept from getting a license because of a criminal conviction. But speeding, we're much more concerned with violent crimes, fraud, things like that have to do with money that might put consumers at risk. Much more concerned about that than we are with speeding tickets. Can you clarify the certifier requirements? Can that person be a former customer?
So on the certification form at the bottom in section 2, it gives you different categories that the person can fall under. It can be an employer, a journeyman, a contractor. It doesn't have to be the contractor that you were working for. Maybe there's another contractor that knows that you have this experience and is willing to fill out your certification. It can be a fellow employee. It can be a union representative, a supervisor, or a business associate.
Okay, if I apply as a sole proprietor, can I use the business name that does not include my last name? And if so, will I need to register my DBA with the state? If you're just a sole ownership one, you don't. And we actually, as long as your name is, if you're talking about some kind of construction service, if you've got an electrical license, you need to make sure if you're going to include something about, JS Electrical. It needs to be electrical. You can't have, JS Plumbing if you're electrical. So we're more concerned about the name doesn't misrepresent who you are, the type of company you're having. You only need to register with the Secretary of State's office if you're a corporation or an LLC. Do I need to provide a copy of my proof of experience and Social Security history report if I have an ITIN number? No, just either one is good. If you have a Social Security number, you can use that. If you have an ITIN, you can use that. You don't need both. Next question. I work for an apartment maintenance company. I'm in charge of remodeling units. I install flooring, recessed lighting, drywall, paints. I also repair decks and build walls for drop ceilings. Does this qualify as experience? If you're trying to get a B license, that sounds like many of the things you would be doing to get a B license. Yeah, that's the kind of experience that would help qualify you. So you're going to definitely want to make sure you got the certifiers that could qualify that. Next is, I am taking over my father-in-law's business and I'll be leaving the name the same. Do I put him business name on, or do I put his business name on my application? So I'll say that again. I'm taking over my father-in-law's business and I'll be leaving the name the same. So do I need to put him onto my application? So I'll just say it this way. It's the situation, if you're going to be, in essence, this is changing a qualifier and changing the people on a license. If the company name is staying the same, you can make those changes to it. Anna's shaking her head, so.
Perfect. Right. You can use, if you're using a DBA or a business name that's already in the works, that's fine. We're not going to require anything further. We don't compare, when you submit a business name, we don't compare it to our records to see if somebody else is already using that name. So if you tell us this is the business name that you want to use, we will go ahead and issue your license in that business name.
Right. We're much more concerned about, like I said, that it doesn't mislead people on the kind of work you do. Okay. And here's a specific question about Section 4 of the application. It says, okay. In Section 4, if there is only one individual, do the remaining sections need to contain NA or left blank?
NA. NA is fine.
Okay. Are the study guides contain the same amount of information that is found in books that are offered through online schools? It depends on the online schools. I mean, again, I would just encourage you to look at what we have there. If you think that you need more to assist you, then take a look at the schools. It's kind of hard to give a one-size-fits-all answer for that. Okay, and I'll just go over it again because you're asking about the free study guides. Yeah, we have a handful of questions for each one, and it talks. The important thing, it does talk about the different sections, the different types of things that are going to be covered on the exam. The resources also that we list there are the resources that the people, and we have. It's a very complex process that we go through to update the exams that get updated every 5 to 7 years. People from the industry do assist in that. The resources that they use to create the exams are the resources that we list on the study guides. So know that that's the type of information. And again, we do measure for minimum competency. So we're not trying to trick you. We're just trying to be able to, find out that you've got the experience and allow you to demonstrate that you will be a good contractor and that you know what you're doing. Okay, next. On the exam, on the wrong answers, do you get the correct answers afterwards? Anna?
No, you would not be provided with the correct answers, but you will get a statement, a document that lets you know what subjects, what percentage you got in certain subjects, and so you'll know that you need to go back and study up on that particular subject.
Okay, next question. Why do I need a bond?
Everybody needs a bond. It's a requirement for a license. So, but it really is a protection for you, because what happens is, let's say you start working and you think you're doing quality work and you know that you're standing by your work, it's up to industry standard, but the homeowner for some reason is not happy with your work. So what they do is they file a complaint with us, and we encourage them to file a complaint also against your bond. Your bond should conduct an independent investigation. What they do is they come out and look at they're supposed to come out and look at the project and see if the work was done to industry standard. If they determine it wasn't, then they may pay out to the consumer. It's a protection for you, because the consumer doesn't have to sue you. They can go after your bond.
Okay, next, the applications must be accepted and approved prior to scheduling the exam, correct? And the answer is yes. Yeah, we can't schedule. It doesn't make any sense if there's an issue with the application. So yeah, it has to be accepted and approved first. Okay, next question is, on the study guides, you show the resources. I've gone to those sites, but there's so much information, I don't know where to start. Do I have to study everything you have under the resources on the study guide? For example, in this case, the C9 license, which is drywall. And I'll let you talk in a second on that, but I would just say is take a look at what we talk about as far as the sections, the kinds of things that are going to be covered in the exam. That might help you, zero in on that. And anything to add?
Yes, and with the license preparation schools, some contractors have come to us and told us that they have been helpful. They've been able to pass the examination after going to school, and some others have told us that they've paid thousands of dollars and weren't able to pass the examination. We have thousands and thousands of questions in our test bank, and so it may be that you come, you take the test today, and then you don't pass it, so you come back in 3 weeks. Maybe not one of the questions that was on your test today are you going to have in 3 weeks. We're just testing for basic knowledge. It's not, you just want to make sure you hit up all the subjects that you see on that study guide. It gives you a really good breakdown. It tells you the percentages, 50% is going to be based on this, 10% is going to be based on this. So you really just want to look at those subjects and study up on that.
Okay, next question talks about the bond again. Is it actually, you actually have to pay $15,000 or pay a bond company like an insurance company? Yeah, you pay a bond company like an insurance company. The bond, part of it, what they take into account is your credit history and some things, and they establish how much it's going to cost you. There are a lot of bond companies out there, so shop around.
Mm-hmm. It works very much like car insurance. Shop around. The coverage you need is $15,000, but there's different premiums out there.
Okay. Our company has a tree service license in different states. Can this render us exempt from taking the exams? No. The California license I mentioned earlier, all states are different. In some cases, though, it's going to be if you have a license in Nevada, Arizona, Utah, and I believe Louisiana. You take a look at our website, there's some cases where that can actually get you to waive the trade exam only. If you're licensed in one of those states, we do have a reciprocity agreement. Go to our website and in the search bar, just type in reciprocity. And that'll give you all the information. It'll show you which ones we have agreements with those states for which licenses. It may not necessarily be all the licenses that state has, but if we find that their qualifications are similar to what we require, we will let that be used to waive just the trade. You'll still need to take the business and law exam, but it may be able to help you waive the trade exam. Okay, if the corporation or partnership gets dissolved, will the license go back to the qualifier?
With a corporation, if the corporation gets dissolved, the license number stays with the corporation. You would have to reapply to get a sole license.
Okay, next question is, what type of license to build fences and decks would it be under one license? Well, I know the fencing is C13.
We have a fencing license.
And I'm not sure if the C5 or C6, which is framing, rough carpentry, cabinet work, millwork, I'm not sure if there's an actual one for just for decks. I would also look at C27, which is the landscape contractor. That one conceivably would be able to cover both of those. Okay. Next one, do you have to have a contractor's license to build and install cabinets? Build cabinets, no. Install cabinets, yes. We're getting a lot of tests here on cabinets. That again is C6. Millwork and finished carpentry contractor. Okay, next question. Can we use our welding experience for a C46? C46 is solar, so I'm not sure what I don't know the trade well enough to know what kind of experience welding is going to go into it, but obviously a solar contractor is much more than just welding if welding needs to be done as part of the installation. So you may be able to get some credits, probably not a ton. Okay, next. I'm applying for a general B license. On the classification description booklet for the B, in addition to carpentry and framing, it mentions 2 unrelated trades. What specific type of work counts towards the work experience for the B license?
Our B license, if you keep in mind, these are people who can build a home from the ground up, and so that's what we're looking for. Yes, if you have the framing experience, then you would be able to qualify for the B license, but you want to include all experience you have in construction, because that's our general construction license. Things such as plumbing, electrical, any other experience that you have, you want to go ahead and include in that section.
Another thing I'd say too is the B license, technically you really should not be taking jobs unless it requires at least 2 different trades in addition to the framing. As Anna said, it really is set up to be for the people who do major construction, who can construct homes, do major remodels, and include framing. Then if you also have electrical or plumbing or other trades that are included. If there's more than 2 different trades, you can take all of that on yourself. You can hire subs, the C classification subs, to do that work. If you have a B license and somebody wants to hire you just for an electrical job, you shouldn't be taking that. You're not legally qualified, even though you're under your B license, you can do electrical work. That's only if you've got the other trades as part of that contract. If you want to be just doing electrical jobs, you can get an additional classification. So you carry your B for the big jobs, and then if you're doing a lot of electrical jobs on the side, get a C10 electrical license and do it that way. But the way the law is set up is specialty contractors should be doing the jobs for specialty jobs. If it's a bigger job, that's when the general contracting license kicks in. Good morning. I have a BA in history from Sac State. Could my education be used for experience? I can't say 100% for sure, but I'm not sure, quite honestly, what a history degree, how that's going to help as far as maybe it's history of construction or some things that we do. But we're really looking for that practical experience, or the experience that's going to help you be a better business person. So on its own, my guess would be there probably wouldn't be a ton of experience credit you'd be able to get for a history degree. Next question, I would like to apply for more than one license. How do I go about doing that?
So when you first get your license, you're going to want to select one classification. Always begin with one classification. As soon as your license number is issued, you can add additional classifications to your license as long as you can prove the experience. We have an additional classification application. You would still have to have your experience certified. You would come back and take the exam only in the classification that you're adding. Once you do that successfully, we would add that classification to your license.
Okay, next one asks about what experience does a degree in architecture cover?
A degree in architecture, what experience would they get? That was a question?
Yeah.
Once we had your transcripts, we would be able to let you know how much experience you're going to get. Before, unfortunately, we couldn't let you know before.
Yeah, and some of it is, what kind of license are you trying to get? A general engineering license where there may be some pieces of that, as opposed to a general contractor. So yeah, it's kind of hard just to answer that in real general terms. Next question is: are there sample tests on the website? You know what? I'm gonna say no. We do have sample questions on there, but to be honest with you, there's only a handful of questions for each trade exam. So there's not going to be a full-fledged sample test on the site. Okay, will getting your record expunged help in the criminal background portion?
No, unfortunately, even though you may have been told that your criminal record is expunged, anything with any felonies within the last 7, any misdemeanors within the last 3 will still show up, because we compare our backgrounds with the Department of Justice and also with the FBI. So even though it was expunged, it would still show up.
Okay, next question. Do I need a license to do pressure washing work for paint prep? Also, I've been painting for 4 years, but only small projects under $450 on my own. Is that okay? So the first part is the pressure washing.
The pressure washing we do offer under our D classification license, which means you would not have to, you would take just the business and law. You wouldn't have to take a trade exam. But yes, we do offer a license for pressure washing.
Okay, then the second one talks about 4 years of experience, but doing small jobs under $450. Can they potentially get some experience?
So the way CSLB qualifies journeyman level is that you are able to complete a project from beginning to end without supervision. So if somebody can certify that you have journeyman level in experience in your trade, that you would want them to fill out your certification work experience.
Okay, and by the way, the pressure washing one, it looks like it's the C61D38, the sand and water blasting license. Okay, next question. Who determines when you start qualifying experience as a journey person? Is it the foreman of the company?
Again, journey level, what CSLB considers journey level is that you are able to complete that project from beginning to end with no supervision. So as long as somebody, it could be the foreman, it could be anybody, somebody who is willing to fill out the form that certifies that you have the experience at a journeyman level, we would consider that. It doesn't necessarily have to be the foreman.
Sorry, go ahead. Similar question to one we had before. Somebody has no experience in the industry, but their spouse does have the experience. What's the advice? The advice is you would get them to qualify the license, but you could be on the license as well. And then after you folks are doing that work for 4 years, if you wanted to become a qualifier, then that would then work towards that experience. But you would need to both be on the license. Okay, next question. Is it possible to get a waiver if I have been working as a project manager and estimator for 15 years under your company's license? The person in charge is retiring and it's in his name under the company name, and his name is different. We're a class B. Okay, so he's asking, I guess he'll be taking, it's unclear if, so Don, if you want me to send additional information, actually, you know what? Try something here. Don, if you happen to be there, if it's like you're on your computer, I'm going to unmute you. Can you help clear up what you're trying to ask there? It's kind of unclear from your question. Don, are you there? May have caught him off guard here. Okay, well, I'll read it again. Maybe we can make. Is it possible to get a waiver if I have been working as a project manager and estimator for 15 years under your company's license? So he sounds like in this case he's an employee for a company. The person in charge is retiring, and it's in his name, and it is in his name under the company name. His name is different than the company name. Yeah, see, what's unclear here, Don, is if you're going to be taking over that license or if you just want to be able to use that experience to get your own license. And let's briefly talk about.
We can answer both. Should we answer both? Okay. So if you are trying to get the experience that you've been on this person, working with this person for 15 years now, you want to go and get your own license, you wouldn't qualify for a waiver. You'd have to apply just the process that we've discussed today. You would apply and you would have to take the examinations. If you are taking over that person's license and you're going to be taking it over, and that person's a qualifier right now, but you're going to be taking it over, you have up to 90 days to replace a qualifier. So if you can meet the experience requirements, he can come off the license as a qualifier. You can be added as a qualifier, but you will need to take the exam.
And next question talks about they already have a C license. What are the steps if they say it's upgrading to a B license, but in this case it would be adding another classification to your license?
Sure. So we have an additional classification application that you would need to fill out. You would need to fill out the the certification of work experience to prove that you have the experience for the B license. You would pay $150 as a fee for the additional classification. Once you pass the examination successfully, then the classification would be added to your license.
And let's extend that out, and then let's say that you now have added the second classification. So then you've got a B and then some C license. Let's say you decide you don't want to keep that C license anymore. Is there a process to take that connection off your license so when it comes up for renewal, you won't have to renew it? Do you just let it expire or do you cancel it?
So
what would you?
If you want it removed, you can. The way it works, though, is your license, when you renew your license. You're not renewing per classification. So that $200, it's not going to be per classification. So you can leave it on your license. Let's say, for example, you have a B, but you also have a painting classification. If you are getting jobs that only require painting, then you might want to leave that classification on your license. It won't cost you anything more at time of renewal. You renew all of your classifications at the same time. And that the good thing would be that you would be able to take on just painting jobs. If somebody came to you and you only had a B license, if you had a B license and somebody asked you to paint their house, remember we're looking for 2 unrelated trades for every single contract on a B license.
Okay, next question talks about they've got the 4 years of experience. Do they need to take a class? No, you don't. No classes, no education required. If you've got that 4 years of experience within the last 10 years and you have it as experience, that's all you need. So no test required. Okay, does out-of-state carpentry qualify? And do I have to pay the application fee to find out? And I want you to talk about, for out-of-state, folks out-of-state looking to get a California license. That process.
Folks out of state trying to get a license in California, we will look at that experience obtained anywhere in the U.S., even out of the country. If you have experience that you obtained anywhere, we will look at it, but you have to have somebody complete your certification of work experience. So as long as somebody's willing to certify that you have at least 4 years of experience within the last 10, we will take a look at it.
Okay. This one we're not going to be able to answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's the most important material to review for a Class B license, which is a general contracting? All I'll say is everything. You're expected to know everything if you want that license. So over half of our licensees do carry a B class. So it's the most popular, but it's not an easy one to get because you are expected to know so much. So everything. I've worked for 7 years in construction, mainly framing. Can I be qualified for a B general contractor's license? Framing background.
Well, framing is one of the requirements for the B license, but it is our general construction. So you're going to want to include all the trades that you have worked in, not just the framing.
Yeah, and if you have an opportunity, you may need to focus on some of those before you can then apply for your license. You may not be able to do it overnight, but certainly look to expand. Again, we want to make sure you're going to be a good contractor doing that stuff. If you don't have experience doing those kinds of other jobs, it'd be really tough to have a license to do that stuff and then you not be good at it. Then that's going to get you in trouble. It's going to get complaints filed against you and it's going to put you in a position you don't want to be in, especially with courts and things. So, okay, I currently do automotive tinting. I'm a certified window tinter. Can I get any credit for being certified? I'm certified in automotive window tints, but would be applying for a window covering contractor's license. He's interested in flat glass work.
You can send it in. You can definitely send it in if you want it to be considered. But window tinting is different than residential tinting or window tinting for buildings. So I don't believe that they would be able to use that experience. But you can definitely try sending it in with your application.
Okay, next one. If I get my contractor's license, do I need to get an HIS, which is home improvement salesperson as well? What if I'm working with another contractor and bidding on jobs? Okay, so I'll try to make this simple. You, as a contractor, if you don't have any salespeople working for you, you don't have to have any HISs. If you do have somebody working for you who actually are putting together the contracts, negotiating contracts, getting people to sign contracts, those people do need to be registered with a contractors board. There's no test to pass, but they do have a criminal background check that they have to pass. So if you're going to be using those kind of employees, they do need to be registered. What if you are working with another contractor and bidding on jobs? If I'll assume for the purposes of that question that you are not a registered HIS working with another contractor, maybe you're going in as partners on a job. Anna, what would be the rules there for if you want to go in together with a different contractor as both of you?
If you're licensed and that contractor is licensed, then you wouldn't need an HIS. You couldn't contract for yourself. That contractor can contract for his business. HIS only comes into play when you have, like Rick mentioned, if you have an employee who is going to be negotiating on your behalf.
And no cases where if somebody is just setting up appointments or if they're just there's companies out there that just do lead generation, those people do not have to be registered. But as soon as they start getting involved in contracts, negotiating and doing that's when the registration kicks in. Okay, next question. I used to live in Saudi Arabia. I'm an architectural engineer. Does my 14 years of experience count towards contractor's license? I was a project manager there, graduated from college in 2004. Very similar to some of the other questions we're having. It's hard to get too specific. Obviously, it appears 14 years experience doing that kind of stuff. It's hard to tell you for sure how much we're going to be able to accept of that, but there's probably a good chance. But there's the steps that we've talked about here that you're going to have to go through to get that judged and get your application in, and then we can have somebody devote the time to working through that. If we turn in an application that has a mistake on it, will someone contact you to let you know?
Yes, somebody will contact you. It will fall on a technician's desk, and the technician will, if it's something that's obvious to the technician, they're going to go ahead and send you a letter and give you 60 days to make any changes that you may need.
Okay, so how long after passing the exam do you have to submit your bonds?
So the bond is one of the final steps into getting your license. So as soon as you pass your exam, you can go, if you're done with your fingerprinting, everything's ready, you're just ready to go and get your license. As soon as you get your bond, then we'll issue the license number. So it's dependent on you. Once you're ready to get your license number, you have that bond information, we go ahead and issue that license.
Okay, we've got about 15 minutes left, folks. So I'm still seeing we've got quite a few questions. So if you're I'll say, there's a chance if you put in a new question now, we may not get to it, but we're going to try to power through these as quickly as we can so everybody can get your answers. Where can I find the questions that will be on the test? Again, just go to the website, do study guides, and you'll go to the pages we have, look for the specific classification you're looking for. Okay, I've worked full-time for many contractors over the last 10 years. Do I need to send the experience form for each one?
If one person is willing to certify 4 years, that's all we need. We just need one person to certify for 4. If you have to break it up between 2 or 3, that's fine. You can make as many copies as you need to in order to get your 48 months within the last 10 years.
Okay, it says just to confirm, packaging up the experience per a guy from Florida. Can we send this in for review in advance of the full application, or where would we? No, you got to send it in. Unfortunately, we get 1,000+ applications a month, and we just don't have the staff to go through unless we've actually got the formal application to work on. Okay, can the B perform the specialty trades like concrete and plumbing in addition to the framing? Yes, but if the contract, we talked about it before, if the contract includes all of that work, you can't just go out and get a concrete job or go out and take just a plumbing job. It's got to be a bigger job that includes those. As long as it includes more than 2 different trades, you're golden. If the corporation or partnership gets dissolved with license, okay, that question's come up a couple times now. Okay, I have no experience and would like to obtain a contractor's license. What should I do first? Jokingly, I'm going to say you should move to Nevada first. No, the thing is, though, is that's a critical part of having your contractor's license is having the experience to qualify. So if you've got no experience being a contractor, you're really not qualified to get a contractor's license. Now, the law does allow you to get a qualifier to qualify and to have that experience and to pass the exams. We'll leave it at that. Those are the requirements. If you can get somebody to qualify that license for you, you can work towards that. But without that experience, there's really no ways to cheat and to get around that. It's important to have the experience before you can be a contractor. There is a value to the license. And if they just start giving it out to people who don't have the experience and things, then that's going to really decrease the value of it. Okay, I've been working for a contractor for 4 years and he pays cash. How can I document and use that towards your experience?
So as long as somebody is willing to, maybe a fellow coworker, somebody is willing to fill out your certification of work experience and tell us what the duties are that you've been performing, we can start. That's a starting point. It does not have to be your employer who fills out the form. And we understand that people are being paid cash. We definitely will look at that experience.
Okay, the next one is talking about somebody who has a bachelor's in electrical engineering and they're applying for C39, which is roofing, with potentially any credit for that. And I know we're getting a lot of questions. They're getting very specific. It's really hard to say. Chances are you're going to be able to get some, but it's going to be real critical. You've actually got the experience doing the roofing. And no matter what, even with the full credit for education that you're going to get, you're still going to need to have some practical experience. So I'd say, I'm sorry we can't get more. If we're leaving you with an empty feeling with the answers, it's hard to say. You could get some, but it's critical that you got some of that practical experience. And it's also going to make you a better contractor if you've actually got the practical experience. Okay, I have an international bachelor's. Okay, here we go. This is a good question because we haven't touched on this yet. If I have an international bachelor's degree, should the transcript be sealed? I also finished HVAC college. Should I send both transcripts? If you can just talk more in general about the process of doing transcripts and the fact they should not not have the school send the transcripts, they should get them themselves. So you can just go over that, Anna.
Sure. So even with international degrees, you definitely want to get the transcript sent to you. And if it's in any language other than English, it's going to have to be translated. So it doesn't have to be sealed. You can unseal it and go ahead and get it translated. If it's in English, leave it sealed. Send it in with your application packet. You don't want to have them send it directly to CSLB. You want to go ahead and have them sent to you, and you mail it in with your application.
Okay, for partnerships, do both owners have to be licensed?
With the partnership license, one of the partners, and you're going to let us know who is going to be the qualifier, that's the person with the experience. That's the person who will take the examination.
Okay, do all past employees have to fill out the certifier experience description section? I no longer have contact with some of the previous employers who can attest to that work experience.
I think we kind of covered that. No, not necessarily. It doesn't have to be your employer. We're looking for somebody who can certify 4 years of a journeyman level experience.
Okay. Yeah, the next one talks about contractor doesn't want to sign. He got paid cash for 8 years and doesn't want to sign it. That puts him in a pretty tough situation because it's tough to be able to prove that. Can I discuss the process of getting a contractor's license without qualifying experience? My dad's been a plumber for 40 years, but won't do the process to get his own license. I'd like to get a license, start a company, but he'd run all the building operations. You need the qualifier. If dad's got the experience, dad's going to have to be involved in that license unless you go and you get another person to qualify it. But yeah, definitely you can't be a qualifier without the experience.
Both of them could be on a license. If they wanted to get, a license between the two of them, dad would have the experience, dad would have to take the exam.
Yeah, it sounds like in this situation, dad doesn't want to. So yeah, definitely he would need to, or you would need to find somebody else to qualify. Okay. Okay. Same question about does the application accept and approve prior to scheduling? Yes. Yeah, because we don't want it to then come back and be wrong and then delay you again. So we want to get that taken care of first. I want to get a C10 and a C7. Do I need to go through the application process twice? Yeah, first thing you do is figure out which one you want to get first. You go get that one, you take the exams, and then once you get that license, you can go and you can add the other classification. At that point, you only need to take the exam for that new classification. You don't need to take the business and law over again. I have an LLC for my welding business. Will I have to obtain another one for my solar panel business?
No, not necessarily. It's you're going to let us know that you're already an LLC. You wouldn't have to even get two licenses. It'd be one license, two different classifications on the license.
Next is where do I find the link for the application? Go to our homepage. We've got sections across the top. One of them talks about applicants. If you're not sure, you can't find it, just go to the search bar, type application or forms or something. You'll get the applications pretty quickly. Okay, another question about the apartment complexes, which we've answered before. That potentially could go towards your experience. Study guides in Spanish, and I don't believe our study guides are in Spanish this time.
They're not.
It says, can we transfer the license into my name? What's the process of, if there's already an existing license, of becoming a qualifier or getting something put into your name?
So when we're informed that a qualifier wants to come off a license or change of a qualifier, you have up to 90 days to replace a qualifier. They do have to prove their experience and they do have to take the examination.
Okay. Next one is somebody who's been working for a public agency for a number of years. Can they use that that experience working for a public agency as an electrician in this case?
If you have the experience at a journeyman level, you want to go ahead and have somebody fill out your work certification form and we will take a look at that experience.
Okay, we've got somebody here who used to be involved in a union, didn't finish their journey because they started to work on residential jobs. Can they use any of that apprenticeship if they didn't complete it? Can that be used towards it?
We would need somebody to say that you had journeyman level experience.
I'm sorry, just going through it, seeing a lot of repeating questions here.
Sure.
Yeah, a lot of the questions are very specific about the experience and being able to document that. So in some cases, if the people aren't there anymore or they're out of state and they've gone out of business, yeah, it does make it challenges. Look for things if you do have. I mean, pay stubs in some cases might be helpful. If there's job reviews, if there's other things that talked about, duty statements and things, we want to try to work with you to document that, but we need to be able to be confident that you're not just blowing smoke at us, that you actually have the experience. Okay, so next, I do multiple types of work: electrical, plumbing, concrete. I've been doing this for 5 years. Would I be able to get all three classifications? Yes, one at a time, though. To get the one, find the one maybe you've got the most experience in, or the one you're most anxious to get to work in. Get that one, then add them on.
You can add as many classifications as you can prove the experience for.
Yeah, it's one of the great things about contracting is you can be a small one-person operation. You can grow it and have a few employees. You can become a big, huge contractor and get public works jobs or big things. The sky really is the limit. Yeah, a lot of these are very similar to what we've asked earlier to talk about other relatives that have the experience. What I would suggest, as we're getting close to the end on time here, is we're getting a lot of the same questions again. So I'd encourage you to go back and watch the presentation and watch the Q&A because we've covered a lot of these things. So I'm sorry if I've skipped over yours specifically, but this is a lot of the information we've covered. Okay, asking here, can I apply as a sole owner, then switch to an LLC or a corporate company afterwards with the same license? You talked a little bit about that. That's a fairly common thing to do. I think I mentioned 2/3 of our licensees are sole owners. About 1/3 of them are corporations. So, Anna, just quickly again, what is the short process of switching from a sole owner to, let's say, a corporation?
You would have to fill out a new application to switch from a sole owner to an LLC. So you'd have to fill out the application. But if your sole owner license is in good standing, you wouldn't have to do any of the fingerprinting or testing requirements. Obviously, if your LLC is going to be in the same classification. So it's just, but you would have to pay the application fee. So you're going to want to apply for LLC. You fill out that application.
Okay, next. Let's see, we only got a couple of minutes left here, but which license is appropriate for what they're calling a construction management company, an A or a B? If an A is the experience required by the qualifier in the engineering field, or can it be in construction and project management? The A license is the general engineering contractor, so there's got to be some engineering experience in there. The B is a general building contractor, so that's where you're building. And part of that job is they are prime contractors for jobs, so there is project management involved in there. So unless you've got that engineering experience, chances are you'd be more likely for a B license. I'm flipping properties. It's been more than 4 years, and all properties are sold with my name. I've worked and supervised those. Can I qualify for owner builders, and how can I put my experience in the application?
You're going to want to, you can try to fill out the owner builder. It's on our website. Are they asking where they can get it? It's on our website. If you have permit numbers that you can verify the information, it has to be verifiable experience. So as long as we can verify the experience, we can look at it to qualify you for the 4 years within the last 10.
Okay, we'll take one more here and then we'll wrap things up. So following up on a DBA question, a doing business as, if a corporation is called ABC Construction, has a B and a painting classification, so two classifications, then they file locally as corporation doing business as ABC Painting, does ABC then need to get a license with CSLB as well? So it sounds like in this case, the license is for this ABC Construction, and it has both a B and a C33 classification. Then they want to change, which says you want to file locally as a corporation DBA. Well, I'm not sure who you'd file that locally. Is that for a business license? I mean, you would file the DBA with us. And if that's the case, we probably, I don't know, Anna, would we have an issue with somebody that's got a B and a C33 calling them ABC Painting?
No, they can use many DBAs. So as long as they're, they let us know, they can have different DBAs. That's not a problem.
Each license can have, I mean, for a license number, they can't have more than one DBA on a license number, though, can they?
As long as they, yeah, and they're going to have to check with their local building officials to see what their requirement is about registering it with them. But with us, as long as they let us know, yeah, they can use DBA painting. The DBA with the painting.
Right, but they can't have two different DBAs. They can't say doing business as ABC Painting and ABC Construction. You can't have two different DBAs. You just got to tell us one. Part of the thing that we want to avoid here, we want consumers to be able to avoid, is them not knowing who they're contracting with. When you start getting into these things with a lot of different company names, and I'm not sure who I have this contract with, that's when you start running into problems. That's when we start getting lots of complaints, and that's one of the challenges. Okay, so I think we pretty much got through everything. Like I said, we're seeing a lot of repetition on there, so I think we're in a good place. If we didn't get your question answered, go back and listen and go through this thing. Chances are we probably answered the question. If you need to, you can always drop us an email. So at this point, we're going to wrap things up, and thank you for the questions. Now, if you do have any other questions about your application, we would encourage you to drop an email to our licensing division. The address is licensing at cslb.ca.gov. There you see it on the screen. For licensing questions, it's licensing at cslb.ca.gov. If you have down the line in the process where you want to reschedule an exam potentially, or if it's exams being canceled, with COVID, there have been situations where we've had to close the center for a day or two and maybe have to reschedule, or if there's a power outage or something like that. If it has to be rescheduled, exams at cslb.ca.gov would be what you would send your email to for that.
And just a reminder, we are trying to identify the available resources specifically targeting women considering a career in construction. So please let us know what's out there, especially if there's a void that you think that CSLB can fill. Please send us an email, social@cslb.ca.gov. That concludes today's workshop. An archived version of this will be placed on CSLB's YouTube channel. We welcome your comments or topics for future webcasts. Just drop us an email at the same address, social@cslb.ca.gov.
A special thanks to our licensing division and other staff who helped work on this workshop with us. The Get Licensed to Build workshop is a copyrighted production of the California Contractors State License Board. Thanks for watching. Stay cool. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.